Hello and welcome to another episode of Mindset Money Success. And I'm your host, Loraine Marshall. Now, this month, October, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I'm helping you to understand a situation between a former partner and myself because I used an AI platform to extract information from our July 2021 email communications. And this episode is based on the summaries that the AI platform provided. The free legal advice that I was given from CAVI, which is a gender violence charity in Cartagena, was do not make any more gender violence complaints. After the first complaint was dismissed and the original solicitor that I paid for advice had told me to appeal. The conflicting advice then was, do not make any more gender violence complaints. You will make him angry. PH was already angry. The recordings I have from 2018 and 2020 are proof of that. Negotiate, they said. I had already tried to negotiate. Before we get into today's episode, I'm supporting women over 40 who are experiencing trauma or grief after relationship endings by providing a safe space to unpack issues, connect with other women, and a supportive community that offers valuable information and resources to help us move from trauma to transformation. And I will leave a link under this video and in the show notes. So this is a summary of an email that I received from my former partner in July 2021. This email from PH to Loraine Marshall is a heated response to Lorraine's attempts to resolve conflict through social media. P criticises Loraine for publicly airing their personal issues, particularly after she engaged a mediator. He accuses her of ignoring professional advice and instead relying on friends who encourage her vengeful actions. P emphasizes the dissonance between Lorraine's public persona of forgiveness and healing and her private vitriolic communication. The email ends in P reiterating his offer to Loraine to receive £30,000 and move on or continue the conflict. P ultimately aims to convince Loraine to accept his offer and end their dispute, highlighting the consequences of her actions and suggesting that she learn from her father's mistakes. Here in this email, I'm made out to be vengeful. I am being criticised for posting on social media and ignoring professional advice. The truth. The mediator, Waypoint Consultancy, which is no longer in operation, the owner-manager lied and manipulated me. He told me he had already received £3,000 that would be paid as soon as P's belongings and his vintage sports car were collected from the property and taken into storage. Of course, I was angry. I posted a video on Facebook with the hashtag truthbomb. But I was telling the truth. P was the one who was twisting things. The offer had moved from 115,000 euros, 50% of the value of the property, to zero. You will leave my house with nothing, in his October the 5th email. The first offer in the mediation was £13,000. The 3,000 was supposed to be paid as soon as his car was collected, and I thought this was a derisory offer. He was using the threats of precarious eviction and me being forcibly removed from the property in order to offer me less and less money. The mediator told me £40,000 had been agreed, but it was offered in instalments. Now, the KV gender violence lawyer advised me it should be money first, then leave. So now in his email of July, the offer had gone to 30,000, and there was a reference to my father and his mistakes, which was emotional blackmail from P. Now, if we take the other email communications into account and ask a specific question, we'll see a different answer. The email communications that expose the manipulations of a predator. P's manipulation despite public exposure. P's behaviour, as illustrated in the sources, aligns with the pattern of a perpetrator seeking to maintain control and silence their victim, even when their actions are exposed. He does this through several means. Blaming Loraine for his actions. P consistently blames Loraine for the breakdown of their relationship and her current predicament. He characterises her as unreasonable, vengeful, and influenced by manipulative friends. He states, "Nobody cares who I have shagged or shouted at," implying that Loraine's focus on his behaviour is unwarranted and excessive. Downplaying the seriousness of the situation, P minimises the impact of his actions on Loraine and attempts to frame the situation as a simple matter that she is blowing out of proportion. He suggests that the relationship end and normal adult people get over it and move on. This minimises the financial and emotional distress he caused Loraine. Controlling the narrative. P seeks to control the narrative around their separation. He criticises Lorraine's social media posts, accuses her of spreading lies and exaggerating the truth. He positions himself as the victim of her vitriolic bile and manipulative tactics. Using financial power as leverage. P uses his financial resources to maintain control over Loraine. He frames his financial offer as a gift, not any obligation, and repeatedly emphasises that she has until July 19th to accept his terms. This creates a power imbalance, puts pressure on Loraine to comply with his demands. Invoking manipulation, emotional manipulation. P attempts to manipulate Loraine by bringing her deceased father into the conversation. He insinuates that Loraine is making the same mistakes as her father and implies that she will end up in a similar situation if she doesn't accept his offer. This tactic is designed to evoke guilt and fear, prompting Loraine to make the decision he wants. By employing these manipulative tactics, P attempts to discredit Loraine, deflect responsibility for his actions, and maintain a position of power and control over her. even as she seeks a fair and equitable resolution. Let's look at invoking emotional manipulation. Why did he bring my deceased father into the communication? Because he knew what it means to me. He knows the story of how my father died. Here is what happened to my father, John Keeling Marshall. Yes, I did use my father's middle name as my author pen name. He wanted to name me Loraine after Sophia Loraine. He knows that my father died destitute and alone. He was discovered in a park under a tree after he discharged himself from hospital in Cannes in France. He was also an alcoholic. The family were unable to have his body returned to the UK, and there was never any funeral. It's evil, emotional manipulation tactics, insinuating that I will end up the same way as my father, destitute, because he could pursue precarious eviction through the courts in Spain, helped by his expensive specialist Barcelona lawyer. He uses a tactic that I wrote about in my first book. DVAM, an acronym first used in 1997, based on the work of psychologist Jennifer Freed. DVAM stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim, and Offender. This psychological defense mechanism is commonly used by individuals accused of wrongdoing, particularly in contexts of abuse and manipulation. DVAM has been used in a UK court to explain how the offender projected blame to deflect from himself. Researchers indicate that it is a common manipulative strategy of psychological abusers. Power and control dynamics between P and Loraine. Here is another situation. The sources, primarily consisting of emails, paint a clear picture of power imbalance in a relationship that continues even after their separation. P leverages his financial resources, emotional manipulation tactics, and attempts to control the narrative to maintain power over Loraine, who finds herself in a vulnerable position following his abrupt departure and withdrawal of support. Financial control. Unilateral financial decisions. Paul unilaterally decides to end their financial partnership and presents Loraine with a take it or leave it financial proposal. He frames his offer as a gift, not an obligation, despite their shared history and her contributions to their life together. Shifting financial goalposts. Paul repeatedly changes his financial offer, initially proposing 50-50 split of their Spanish home's value before reducing it to a much smaller sum and the threat of eviction. This constant shifting of terms keeps Loraine in a state of uncertainty and insecurity. Blaming Loraine for financial dependence. Paul uses Loraine's lack of income, a direct result of their relationship and his decision to leave, as justification for his limited financial support. He ignores the fact that her current financial vulnerability is largely due to his actions. Emotional manipulation and control, blaming and shaming. P blames Loraine for the relationship breakdown and her current struggles, attributing them to her personality flaws, poor judgment, and the influence of her friends. He characterizes her as unreasonable, vengeful, and unable to move on, shifting the focus away from his actions and their impact, gaslighting and minimizing. P minimizes the significance of his infidelity and emotional abuse, suggesting that events are commonplace and easily overcome by normal adult people. He dismisses Lorraine's attempts to address pain and financial instability he causes as excessive and unwarranted. Invoking deceased father. In a particularly low blow, P brings up Lorraine's deceased father, insinuating that she is repeating his mistakes and suggesting that she will end up destitute if she doesn't accept his offer. This attempt to evoke guilt and fear is a blatant form of emotional manipulation. Control of narrative. Dictating communication channels. P criticizes Lorraine's use of social media to share her experience and seek support. He attempts to confine their communication to private channels, limiting her ability to expose his behavior and garner support from others. Framing himself as the victim, he positions himself as the victim of Lorraine's anger and accusations, portraying her as unstable and vindictive, while he is the rational one trying to help. This manipulation tactic aims to garner sympathy and deflect responsibility for his actions. Lorraine's position. The sources highlight Lorraine's struggle to regain her footing after P's sudden withdrawal of emotional and financial support. She experiences significant distress, financial instability, and the threat of losing her home. Despite this, she demonstrates resilience and a determination to secure a fairer solution. She proposes alternative solutions, seeks legal advice, and asserts her right to a dignified and financially secure future. The power dynamic between P and Loraine showcases a pattern of control and manipulation, often seen in cases of financial and emotional abuse. By understanding these dynamics, we can better recognize and address similar situations where one party seeks to maintain power and control over another, even after the formal relationship has ended. There were 4 sources used in obtaining this summary through Notebook LM, a Google AI platform. 1, the 29th of August 2020, Dear Loraine letter with his financial proposal. 2, 12th of September email of Lorraine's financial proposal that they were meant to discuss on September 15th, 2020. 3, the email of the 6th of July from P. 4, the email reply 6th of July by Loraine. I self-published my first book while under the threat of precarious eviction from a former partner. 3 weeks after I published, I was in a civil court verbal hearing where my free public appointed lawyer informed me that the judge would order my eviction. The hearing took all of 5 minutes. I understood that it was a verbal hearing, and I asked a court translator who had been appointed for the gender violence hearings in 2020 and 2021 if he could help me. He was present at the court hearing. I was denied any opportunity to speak at this hearing. There were no questions asked, and the defence lawyer did not present any evidence to the judge that there might be wrongdoing on the plaintiff's behalf, ignoring completely the psychological abuse I had experienced, the facts that he had presented me with a financial settlement and then turned on me within days of writing his offer, as I was threatened that he was in control. I do as he says, or he could throw me out onto the streets. September 4th, 2020. P's persistence towards legal action and recovery of his house was never about the property. I followed the advice of the free gender violence lawyer to negotiate and not file any further gender violence complaints. In July 2021, the year before the eviction hearing, there was a negotiation between the two of us. A handwritten document was signed by both of us. P agreed to a payment of £40,000 on sale agreed, as there was a buyer ready to pay a deposit on the property. The email communications came before the agreement was signed. I had been offered a place to go, which would have been a temporary solution to my predicament. At this time, I still owned a property in the UK, which P had already agreed to redeem the mortgage as part of the original Dear Loraine letter. Only it was a dangling carrot. As he stated in the letter, it would be paid after I leave Las Cenas. Money and legal actions are the weapons that manipulators use to emotionally and financially devastate their victims. Some individuals do not survive these situations, and as I have spoken about in another episode on the emotional energy spiral, survivors of these insidious, hidden forms of abuse can be as low as no will to live. Thank you for listening to this episode of my podcast, Mindset Money Success. Just to explain, I'm supporting women over 40 who are experiencing trauma or grief after relationship endings by providing safe space to unpack issues, connect with other women in a supportive community that offers valuable information and resources to help us move from trauma to transformation. If this episode resonates with you, you can join me inside the community. No cost, zero commitment, safe space. I will be launching a monthly paid membership, and founder members will get the opportunity to join at a low monthly fee of $10, £10, €10. Together, we are stronger. A little support goes a long way. Please share my content, like, comment, and join with me. If you have a story to share about your transformation journey, do connect through any of my social platforms and let's have a chat. See you on the next episode. Bye for now.